Hello, I'm Professor Jagdishan Sheth at Emory University. This presentation is all about entrepreneurship and how entrepreneurship is a lot more than capitalism. We somehow have associated entrepreneurship with capitalism only because, as late as 1776, when Adam Smith, the father of modern capitalism, added entrepreneurship as one more ingredient toward creating a successful business or to compete, and that turns out to be land, labor, capital, and then he added entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship actually is as old as civilization. In fact, civilization itself has survived through entrepreneurial activities. Entrepreneurship really begins more from a survival instinct. It's innovation, it's change to survive. So this presentation really talks about how entrepreneurship is more than capitalism. Capitalism is all about market governance through competitive forces and price mechanism. What Adam Smith called about the invisible hand. Leave the market alone, don't interfere. The collective wisdom of people who participate as owner-managed businesses with a self-interest will have a corrective mechanism, and price would be the governing factor. And that's what entrepreneurship or capitalism is all about. Entrepreneurship, however, is all about market development and market disruption. In some ways, it was Joseph Schumpeter who really came out with the right argument that capitalism is all about constructive destruction. That there's a systematic way capitalism revitalizes the businesses. And to me, in some way, entrepreneurship is the catalyst for bringing about a change in an industry which otherwise stagnates, for example. It is also different than innovation, as I will talk about. This presentation, however, will talk about how 10 different ways entrepreneurship is more than capitalism, because I would like to break that association of entrepreneurship with capitalism. In fact, in another presentation, I made a strong point called entrepreneurship by necessity. Many refugees, when they came to America or any other place, have become great entrepreneurs. Dislocations in life have created great entrepreneurs. When senior executives have lost their jobs because of the transition in the industries in the 80s, have become great entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurship by necessity is equally there as it is entrepreneurship by passion or entrepreneurship through survival primarily. But this is a focused discussion about 10 different ways entrepreneurship is more than capitalism. So we break the association that is out there in our mind to think about entrepreneurship in a much broader and a lot more powerful force than capitalism. First of all, entrepreneurship is more universal than capitalism. It extends beyond business into non-business entities or sectors, such as education, healthcare, fine arts, as well as social and political issues. Many of the great social activists or advocates are great entrepreneurs. Many of the musicians are great entrepreneurs. It's not because they like to create for-profit business, but because they're obsessed about what they want to do. And they know how to organize ultimately, which is the key principle of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is more inclusive than capitalism. Everybody can be an entrepreneur, irrespective of age, gender, literacy, or faith. All faiths have entrepreneurs. Women are often better entrepreneurs than men. More illiterate people are as good or sometimes better entrepreneurs than educated or educated people. We have seen this very much consistently that the most successful entrepreneurs actually are college dropouts and if they were allowed, they will be high school dropouts. So young people can be entrepreneurs, as we see in this typical Silicon Valley internet phenomenon. And also the older people can be entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurship is more universal than capitalism, more inclusive than capitalism. Surprisingly, entrepreneurship is more trusted than capitalism. Entrepreneurs are respected for their exploration, ingenuity, and passion. Capitalists, on the other hand, are mistrusted as exploiters of society, which says that if I am an entrepreneur in business, I'm less trusted than if I'm an entrepreneur in some social non-business activities. Isn't that interesting? So entrepreneurship is more than capitalism. As I mentioned, entrepreneurship is more egalitarian. Entrepreneurship is admired and cheered, especially among those who struggle and survive. On the other hand, capitalism is perceived as elitist and manifested in gated communities and country clubs. Think about the two images that one has about an entrepreneur, especially a social entrepreneur, as opposed to a business capitalist. I also find that entrepreneurship is more innovative than capitalism. Entrepreneurs, by definition, challenge the prevailing view or the wisdom in all aspects of life. They are pragmatic, they are not ideologues. On the other hand, capitalism is an ideology-based philosophy or thinking. And capitalism tries towards equilibrium, as we all study, and toward a stability between the supply and the demand, which means capitalism actually inherently has the bias toward status quo, has a bias toward create legacy, and that is why many companies or many industries even die in the long term. Entrepreneurship survives. So the body and the mind may go away, but the spirit or the soul survives. It's a similar thing around here. Entrepreneurship, therefore, is more than capitalism by being more innovative, pro-change. Entrepreneurship is always about future positive. It is always about hopeful future and encourages the human spirit to embrace uncertainty in times of turbulence. The old saying that we have, challenge is an opportunity, that's exactly what entrepreneurs see. They don't see challenge as self-defeating, they see challenge as something that is a great opportunity either to create a social movement or to create a political movement, for example, or to bring about a change in general, and they thrive on that uncertainty and a chaos for that matter. Entrepreneurship is great equalizer. Entrepreneurs are usually David against Goliath, especially Goliath of entrenched institutions, the incumbents in many ways. Entrepreneurs are often the underdogs in the society who succeed against all odds, and we admire them. In fact, many countries admire the underdogs, not the privileged. Entrepreneurship realizes the human potential. Entrepreneurs enable humans to realize their own potential. It makes ordinary people extraordinary. As I've said in my other presentations, if you take a grain of wheat and make it into a loaf of bread, the value add is only about 3 times. If you take a rough diamond and polish it, the good diamond cutter will enhance the value of a rough diamond 15 to 20 times. But if you take a human being, the more illiterate, the younger the human being, the more women as entrepreneurs, you can polish, educate, mentor, and get more potential out of them. The value add, therefore, of mentoring a human being is infinite. In other words, the role of the entrepreneurship, not capitalism, the role of the entrepreneurship is to make ordinary people extraordinary. And entrepreneurs, by definition, give back. Think about giving back phenomenon, philanthropy as we call it, during the days of the kings and the nobles, the monarchy era, during the days of, let's say, democratic societies, business institutions, and how much they have contributed, other than to the faith in some fashion, is relatively limited. But entrepreneurs, when they've made money, especially if they've come from humble beginnings, have always believed how grateful they are to the society who invested in them, who nurtured them, and begin to have a sense of giving back. Immigrants tend to give more back than the locals. Immigrants have the urge to say, I would have never imagined my potential. Somebody mentored me, nurtured me. Time has come for me to give back. Whether those are Bill Gates of the world, or Warren Buffett of the world, or this whole movement of new billionaires having 50% or more of their wealth to give back to the society, however you do it, rather than pass on to their own children or heirs, or pass on to some other mechanisms. Finally, and the most important point is that a nation's real competitive advantage is not what we have taught in academic books. It is not competition or competitiveness as we think. It is not just resources. Great nations with great natural resources actually are floundering, as we know. But the real competitive advantage of a nation is its entrepreneurship DNA. If the nation somehow has entrepreneurial DNA, either by birth or by immigrants who come, however they do it, and if the society nurtures the entrepreneurs, respects them, recognizes them, that is the real competitive advantage. And today, therefore, you see nations that one had never imagined could become global economic superpowers, such as China and India, even Africa to that matter. The real DNA is entrepreneurship. It is not just education, literacy. It is not just age or faith. It turns out to be entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship is all about blending natural resources and creating an economic outcome or a social outcome or a political outcome. And those resources could be agricultural or human or capital resources. So let me conclude this presentation by saying entrepreneurship is often mistaken with capitalism. As we have demonstrated in this presentation, entrepreneurship is as old as civilization. Only recently it has been linked to capitalism since the foundation of modern capitalism by Adam Smith. In other words, entrepreneurship as a construct or as a belief system or a practice was always there. Adam Smith discovered that and simply said in factors of production, we need to add entrepreneurship along with self-interest and invisible hand, and that's the triage how modern capitalism will be formed. Entrepreneurship is more powerful force of the society. It unlocks the potential of its resources, and especially the human resources. As I mentioned, there are 10 different ways entrepreneurship is more than capitalism. It is more universal, it is more inclusive, it's more egalitarian, it is more trusted, and it is more innovative than capitalism. Key ingredient of entrepreneurship is that it always provides hope for the future. And therefore it's a great equalizer for the underdog in a society. The disadvantage now can say, it's not by birth that I will remain the same and my children remain the same, as often the faith advocates. Entrepreneurship says that you can do whatever you want to do. It's possible. Gives a hope, and that hope keeps the human spirit going. It not only creates wealth, as I mentioned, it also has a tendency to give back for the betterment of society. It enables ordinary people to become extraordinary. To me, it is the single most powerful force for a nation's global competitiveness. It is the recipe that blends a nation's ingredients or resources. And to me, all nations that have great ingredients but no recipe tend to stagnate, flounder, they're lost in sort of a midlife crisis, they don't know what to do. And as soon as you inject entrepreneurship into those nations, either by policy as China is trying to do, or by grassroots approach as India tries to do, for example, those nations totally unlock the potential of their own people and their resources. So I was very intrigued when I began to think about how entrepreneurship and capitalism are not the same. Capitalism is more recent phenomenon. Entrepreneurship is since the dawn of the civilization. Thank you.